Okay, folks. According to YouTube or Streamlabs or something, I'm apparently live. So I'm actually a few minutes early because I want to get the shilling done before I start. So I'm going to leave you staring at a blank screen for a few minutes. Well, not a blank screen, the thumbnail. Enjoy. And you'll see part of the purpose behind this then. You'll hear a few clicks as well, and I apologize for that, but that can't be helped. And probably some fan noise, which should go away fairly quickly once I'm done shilling. And if you're wondering, yes, I've apparently got a different thumbnail for the stream than I thought I did. That's the wrong thumbnail. Oops. Oh well. We'll let that sit. Nobody's perfect. Me less so than others. What is going on here? Oh, Getter is green for some reason today. Happy Halloween, I guess. Let's close you back down. Put you back in that group. You belong. Do. Okay, that's all the social medias with the exception of Discord. Now I have a bunch of Discords to shill to. So, I'm sure there's probably one or two of you in the chat already. So, the short-term question for you guys, or the temporary question for now, is what is some of your favorite bands, some of your favorite music? Right before I started the stream, just to get myself into the mood, I was playing the song Explosive by a band called Bond. And I thoroughly enjoy their music. The fact that they're beautiful women doesn't hurt. But it's sort of... how would I describe it? I suppose one could call it neoclassical. It's got some very pop undertones for classical music, but I think it's very emotive. You can definitely feel the passion that these women play these instruments with when you're listening to their music. The reason I even discovered Bond is my love of the Dresden Files series by Jim Butcher. And if you haven't read those books, I highly recommend them. One of the elements of that book is that Harry is a wizard. The main character is a wizard working as a sort of private investigator in Chicago. And he uses spoken spells, one of which is called Fuego. And in doing a search for the word Fuego, without actually going directly to, Google Translate, because I already knew the word meant fire, I came across a link to the video for the song by Bond, Fuego. And now the two are inextricably linked in my brain. If I think of, if I'm reading the Dresden Files, and I read them about once a year. When I read the Dresden Files and I read the word fuego as Harry is casting the spell, my brain automatically plays part of that song for me, which is an extremely pleasurable sensation. Okay, that's all the shilling done. Now, this is not what I wanted. Son of a bitch. I just realized I posted the wrong fucking link out everywhere. Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay, my channel. There's the right link. Okay, I've got to go back and do all that again. Lovely. So, I do apologize. It's going to be a little bit longer than I meant it to be. And I'm actually late now starting. Because of course I am. Okay, let's just see if I can't edit that Twitter. I can, no, yes I can. No, I'd have to have Twitter Blue. I don't have Twitter Blue, so you get deleted. And I have to write a new tweet. Okay, let's see if this is right this time. Yes, okay, and on Twitter it actually already sent out the notification. Okay, deleting Parlor. Oh, edit. Beautiful. It's nice of Minds to ask me if I want to delete something. There, okay. So if you're on, any of my social medias, be it MeWe, Minds, Getter, Gab, any of those, I do apologize for sending that out by mistake. And you know, we've all seen me boomer through things, so it's not exactly new. Okay. Getter, for some reason, doesn't show quite right in a shrunken... Oh dear. Oh no, that's Gab. Gab always needs to be refreshed before it shows properly. Bear with me, folks. I'm boomering my way through. In the meantime, as I said, tell me about your... tell me about some of your favorite music. I have to blow that up again. And yeah, I like the new color scheme on Getter. It's gone from being red and white to being green and yellow, which... in my opinion, it's a more attractive color scheme, but we'll see what you guys think. Tell me that in the comments as well. And I'm going to skip through Discord rather quickly. I'm not going to worry about deleting the previous... I want to get this done fairly quick. And while I'm also shilling here, I should thank Caucasian Sasquatch, who I believe is still currently live, and probably more entertaining than this, for letting me kindly shill on his channel briefly this morning. Almost done. Only 5 more to go. I really wish I could set up some sort of macro that would just let me post this link everywhere when it goes live. That way there wouldn't be any sort of screw up like this. Also, if the sound isn't great, it's partly because I'm mumbling to myself while I do this work. And that one I will delete, because that's a mispost and that's in my own server. I do have a Discord server. I'm not posting links to it at this point because... okay, bring that up again. Okay, live chat. Oh, Caucasian Sasquatch is in the chat. Is it true I have poutine in my veins? No, I'm from Newfoundland. Newfoundlanders have salt water in their veins. Okay, let me put my face back on screen. Okay, gang. Hello, monkey. I am not gay. You are gay, and I want to know why you are gay. Sasquatch says hi. Hi, Sasquatch. Thanks. Base Ape says Tool perfected music. I don't know. I haven't listened to a lot of Tool. I'll make a note so that I do actually remember to listen to some Tool. But I have listened to some in the past. Wasn't my favorite stuff, but not bad. Let's see. Karakuri, am I late for the spicy bits? Oh no, the spicy bits have not started yet. Let me see. Christopher Everard says, hello Ardent, how's the hangover? Didn't have a hangover. Barely even felt the alcohol yesterday. Surprised me. And I was awake for hours after that, so I had plenty of time for the alcohol to burn out of my system. Bleach Demon says, I'm just distracted by Trim's womb. Yeah, there was a disturbing amount of hentai and very specific and aimed at a specific individual hentai yesterday. I'm not getting drunk with you guys again. Or if I do, I'm getting way drunker. Let's see. And Christopher says, answer your damn chat, you damn Canadian. I didn't even have it on screen while I was doing all that. So, okay, fine, be that way. Let me see here. What else have we got going on? Bleach Demon, his hangover disturbs reading comprehension. Everard says, extreme metal, the rest does not count. It's hippie music. Sasquatch says, I'm just chilling with you. Okay, and I'm caught up. Okay, so, as you can see by the thumb here today, I am aware that this is going to be a potentially offensive, and... yeah, you get used to multitasking, just practice. I need a little more practice. Anyway, as you can tell by the thumbnail, I'm aware that this is likely to offend people. But I think it's one of those things that we should examine, because it's only a little over a century, which is less than 0.1%, if I got that right, of the existence of human society. Bleach Demon says he's drinking but staying remote. Student of History says, morning all. Hello, student. Bleach, I just realized you don't have something that you really desperately should have. There. That's better. Have a wrench. Anybody else doesn't have a wrench? Monkey. I know Monkey. I'll give Monkey a wrench. And for the record, folks, the only reason I'm giving you a wrench is so that you can dull end to the thoughtbots. Everything else I'll handle. Everard says, Elon Musk took over Twitter, the world is saved, you'll be okay. Actually, that technically factors into one of the stories I'm going to cover real quick here. And just put me back on screen. So, part of the issue, and I'm going to get a little closer so that I'm closer to the mic. Basic is the thoughtbot. Okay. So, just to fully explain this thumbnail, as you can tell, I was a little bit humorous with my image selection here. I chose Jordan Peterson because that quote, in order to think you have to risk being offensive, is absolutely, absolutely true. And the other part of the thumb, the confusion between taser and pistol, that will factor heavily into the preamble of this this little discussion here. So, without too much further ado, I'm going to show you a bunch of links, almost all archived, I believe, and we'll have a little discussion about my point of view here. Now, again, excuse me, that was bassy and full of coffee. But my point of view here with this is not intended for me to express a point of view so much as to oh, don't make me laugh, it makes me burp. Excuse me. No, this is actually my point. This exercise is not about determining an answer. This exercise is about discussing the topic, and that's it. It's just talking about the question. I don't intend to make any firm statements. I will potentially make hypothetical statements, potentially, I'm certain, as I point out to Sasquatch, I expect this will make some brains pop, but I think it's something that we should be discussing, given the relatively short history of women in certain positions of authority, specifically combat and law enforcement, and the justice system. Everard says, Ardent wants us to think far-right confirmed. Yeah, I'm a bastard like that. I expect you to use the brains that God gave you. Yeah. Anyway, on to the first link here. Bring that up, kill that. There we go. Okay. So, briefly, I'll talk about the Daunte Wright shooting. And I'm sure a few of you still remember what happened here. With this one, this was Kim Potter had accidentally pulled her handgun instead of the stun gun. Now, as I understand it, and I'll throw myself back on screen for just a moment here. As I understand it, the way that the belt is set up, if you're right-handed, on your right hip, if this is your back and this is your belly, on your right hip you would have your pistol here, your firearm, and then your taser would be here, or possibly a little further back with some separation, so that your muscle memory will cause you, when you're thinking taser, to go further back than you would necessarily for your pistol, for your service piece. What I'm thinking happened in the Kim Potter case and the other case that I'm going to be discussing afterwards is that the muscle memory in a moment of crisis kicks in a little faster than should, and rather than go back, they sweep and they take the first item they strike on the belt. Maybe that's not how it's happening, but that's my theory. Almost destroyed that. Okay, so we all remember, see if I can get there we go. This is a fairly good image. This is Kim Potter's hand with her pistol in hand while she's yelling taser, 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 and pulls the trigger once. Unfortunately, Daunte Wright did die. Whether he was unarmed or not, I don't necessarily know. Oh, sorry, this is not Kim Potter. Or is it? Yes, it is. Okay, sorry. And I've got this archived, so that link probably won't work. But in the same way, Potter, this New Hope, Pennsylvania officer yelled taser before pulling out his gun and shooting the man in the stomach. Critical condition. I assume, just scanning this quickly, I believe he did survive. This has also happened. Now, this is another female, so I'm not putting all of the onus on this on women, because obviously men can make these mistakes as well. Brindley blood. Recklessly, yeah. And again, this isn't about assigning blame. This is about seeking better outcomes, is probably the best way to put it. No national data. Okay. So I'm going to close that one. And again, this is talking about the court case that Kim Potter went through. Or sorry, is this Brindley Blood, this one. So she was responding to a traffic stop. She encountered Officer Ian McCann trying to arrest Akira Lewis. McCann had pulled Lewis over for a seatbelt violation. You can find the clip if you really want to. And of course, this is some of what has happened. Okay, and of course he started swearing immediately. The officer's trying to be reasonable. There was a refusal to comply. Okay, this is where the problem starts. There is always an instigating issue with these stops. Well, almost always. I mean, yeah, there are a few cops who are just out there to be bastards. Or bitches. But when you refuse to comply, it makes the police officer think, okay, maybe you're trying to hide something. Maybe you're dangerous. I understand exactly what they're thinking. And the good cops are thinking, I need to protect the public at all times. The good ones. Whether there are that many good ones or not is a question. Let's see. Billy says she wouldn't have gotten in trouble if she didn't even try to use the taser. Well, maybe. Student of history, I'm not saying, but joking. That's fine. Bleach, it can vary by department on how belts are set up. Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Billy says she would have been justified to shoot him with a real gun anyway. If you're talking about Dante Wright, I don't remember the details quite well enough to say yes or no to that. If I remember correctly, though, this was another case of refusal to comply. So, it's a bit of a gray area. But the biggest issue I have here is the judgment error. The mistake in the heat of the moment. Potter was arrested in April. I believe this is the talking about the trial, so we can actually skip this one. And, of course, Kim Potter has been found guilty of manslaughter in Dante Wright's death. Which, again, just to go back to what Billy was saying, was it justified or not? Well, he was refusing to comply. I don't know that he was unarmed. I can't remember that for sure. And she only fired one shot, which basically tells me that she pulled her gun, pulled the trigger, and realized what she was holding. Now, Bleach, you might have more experience with this than I do. Billy Block says the guy was using the car as a deadly weapon. In that case, he should have been lit up like Christmas. But that's me. But one of the issues I have is that if you are reaching for a weapon... Now, also another thing to bear in mind, with the reaching for the taser, if I recall correctly, there were other officers potentially in the line of fire, which is why she was going for... Part of the reason I expect that she was going for the taser. Now, speaking of tasers and pistols, I'm aware that a pistol is significantly heavy, and I expect it's significantly heavier and probably textured quite differently than a taser. Now, I do hate to say this, but it is a biological fact. Men process information much more quickly than women when it comes to crisis situations. It's one of the things we evolved for. That's why we were such good hunters. And in a situation like that, I would hope that a police officer, a male, who drew his pistol and had intended to go for his taser would realize as he's bringing that weapon up, this is way heavier than my taser, and glance. Or at the very least, hesitate. If, and again, conditions being what they were, you don't necessarily have time to do that. Let's get that peacock off screen. So she showed no emotion. Now, one of the things I hate about this, when someone shows no emotion, that doesn't necessarily show a lack of remorse. What it says is they're trying to stay strong for their family, they're being stoic for themselves, they simply don't want other people to judge them for breaking down, and women especially have an issue with being considered overly emotional. Now, this next one is kind of funny, but really not. So, this one. I don't suppose I can access that video. No, okay. So, in this one... Oh, maybe I can. No, okay. But in this one, this individual here... Now, he's not currently trying to jump, but... Excuse me. When this deputy arrives on scene, there's a guy on the bridge who looks like he's going to try and jump. Now, this is a little later. But she starts talking him down. Standard procedure. Or at least he appears suicidal. We'll leave it at appears suicidal. And... student of history says he's not sure about processing, but I would say reaction speed and fast twitch muscles. Well, that's what I mean by processing information faster. It's that reaction speed. You have... Billy Blogg says the taser is meant to be on the non-dominant side. Ooh. It is lighter and bright yellow. That is quite a big mistake. And again, to go back to what Bleach said, it really depends on the department. I've seen RCMP officers who carry their firearm and their taser on their dominant side, but with a significant enough space between it that the position of your hand and the movement of your muscles, that muscle memory, should kick in to tell you what you're reaching for. Bleach says it really depends on the taser. Some are very service pistol-like in the hand. That's unfortunate. I think the taser should be as different as possible in terms of grip and things like that. Now, not to reduce ergonomics, but to give you an idea of what you're holding. Have to run making up for yesterday's debauchery. It's Sunday, so I'm assuming you're going to church like a good boy. Billy Blogg's another woman who isn't competent to be a police officer. Potentially. And that's really what this discussion is about, is whether this is a potential problem that can be addressed. So what happened was this female officer rolled up. The guy was looking like he was going to commit suicide. What's going on in this image here, he's actually over concrete. So when he drops, he doesn't actually hit anything to harm himself. He lets himself fall very carefully. Christopher Everard says, while we are talking serious stuff and all, I want to announce that I will be watching old Scooby-Doo movie of early 2000. That is all. Okay, cool. Is that the one with Freddie Prinze Jr.? Let me see. So yeah, what happened was he jumped and he ran. Now, here's where the issue comes up. While he's being chased, this is, I believe, a male officer's hand. It looks kind of like a male officer, to me anyway. He's chasing this guy because he's holding a knife and he's essentially trying to evade police. If I recall correctly, they did say in a different article that this guy had a warrant. So he's basically committing felony evasion at this point. And Christopher says, yes, it is the best Scooby-Doo movie. Sure. I just like the old cartoons. Good morning, Callum. Right now we're discussing whether or not women should hold positions of authority, especially in law enforcement and combat. Whether crisis situations may not be the environment for women to serve in. It's probably the better way to put it. But what happened here is a male officer is chasing him. He's got a knife in his hand. The officer's giving him multiple warnings. They end up down on the ground and struggling. The officer's trying to get the knife out of the guy's hand. The female officer comes running up, reaches for what she thinks is her taser. I can't quite remember if she yelled taser, taser, taser or not. For those who are wondering, the reason that you repeat it 3 times is to make sure the message is being received clear. That's why on an aircraft in distress, you hear Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Christopher says he's also going to be talking about the Scooby-Doo movie. Which iteration of the franchise do you prefer? Yeah, I'm definitely the old cartoon guy. That's what I grew up watching. Primed says, do not fear, Primed is here. Here he comes to save the day. Okay, now that bit of tomfoolery is out of the way. So, the male officer is struggling with the guy. He's still got the knife in his hand. The female comes up. As I say, I don't recall for sure if she yelled taser, taser, taser. Sorry, I actually meant to point out, if you want a good pop culture reference for that tripling repetition, in the movie Civil War, Captain America Civil War, the moment that Rhodey's suit is disabled and he starts falling out of the sky, he yells, Mayday, 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 if I recall correctly. I may be thinking of a different scene in a different movie, but it seems to me that that's the right one. But that's some good realism there as well. So yeah, the officer, female officer, pulls her, what she thinks is her taser, ends up firing a single shot. Now, the issue I have is that immediately afterwards, she falls apart. She goes essentially into hysterics and starts obviously crying and shaking. That's not the time for that. Not immediately after the incident happens. Because I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe the situation was completely resolved at that point. And because of that, what you're looking at is a potential ongoing crisis that has not been resolved enough that you can afford. Now, I've been in fights, and I'll put myself back on screen here. I've been in fights. I've been in a lot of fights. I've also been a bouncer, and I've been in some pretty hairy situations as a bouncer. That adrenaline kicks in. You handle this is how I came. This is the process that developed for me through these incidents. You have the fight. You deal with the situation, whatever. When the adrenaline starts to wear off, which means you have time to relax, then you can have the shakes and you can cry. And I've done that. I cry almost every time. I remember very clearly when I was a kid in high school and I'd have a fight in high school. Christopher is correct. I have also been a prick wrestler. Let's see. Callum Dayton, thought patrolling. Yes, military uniform. No, this isn't about thoughts. These women are not using their sexuality. Excuse me. They're not using their sexuality to get their way. Not by any means, and I would never suggest that. But, he says, this female officer has given me flashbacks of the Halo TV series. I have not watched it, and I don't intend to watch it. And the fact that you say that a female Spartan broke down in combat? Oof. How'd she even get to the front line? And Billy Blogs is linking something. I'm not going to be opening any links from chat, Billy, just in case. If you want to give me a little bit of background, that'd be fine. Prime Knight asks if it's adrenaline or inexperience. In the case of my fighting, where I cried afterwards, no, definitely not inexperience. I'd been fighting fairly regularly at that point. Woman giving authority, first comment. Okay. I will take a quick look at it in a little bit, Billy. Just remind me towards the end of the stream. And Caucasian Sasquatch says, say hi to everyone. Hi. And I do. I try to say hi to everybody in my chat. I love my chat. I love conversation. I thrive on it. Yesterday was a ball for me on the Sultans. But I'm going to move back to this. Callum Dayton. Oh. Show that. Okay. Oh, thanks, guys. That's the other thing I want my wrenches to do. Just if someone's comment gets hidden, check it to make sure there's not a massive slur in there, like the N-word, the F-word, whatever. And if there is, leave it. If there isn't, show it. What Callum Dayton says, in Halo TV, I see Night's Watch stuff for review, shit on that. Okay, so the word shit appears quite a couple of times. And that's why that comment got hidden. Come on, YouTube. I say shit all the time. Not as bad as Rings of Power, but still shit. Stream was great yesterday. I almost offered you the golf game. I tried to connect and wasn't able to. And Student of History says, oof. And Callum, since you're here so often, I'll give you the wrench as well. And I think with that, I've got all my wrenches set. So no matter how big this channel gets, until, well, for a while anyway. Cool. Okay. Billy says it's just a YouTube clip of a female police officer that failed to manage an arrest of a guy who ended up accidentally shooting the suspect's mother. Oh. Oof. Yeah, I think I remember this one. And definitely not going to show that. Just, I know you're saying it's safe for work, but, I know you're saying it's safe for work. The thing is, if you guys watch Donut Operator at all, he's having to be extremely careful. And he's an ex-police officer actually attempting to educate people about police procedures. I'm not. So I'm not taking any chances. But just to go back to the stories here now. So, yeah, I mean, she basically fell apart immediately afterwards. And I understand that, but the adrenaline wore off too fast, in my opinion. Which makes me wonder, was the adrenaline even there to start with? And the problem... Now, this is going to sound very sexist. The difference between men and women in a crisis situation, men's adrenaline will kick in when they're in flight or fight mode. I don't think it kicks in quite as fast for women in fight mode. I think where men can work themselves up, I don't think women have as easy a time doing that. I'm sure it's possible, but men have that evolutionary makeup, that element in our makeup that basically says, okay, I'm mad, and I'm so mad, I'm going to puff up and I'm going to kick somebody's ass. I don't think that happens so much for women. I think the adrenaline does kick in for women when they're angry, but I think that tends to be when they're in a position of power. And I don't mean this sort of position. And this isn't intended to be an indictment of all women. But when a mother is abusing a child, or an older woman is abusing a child, I think that's where their adrenaline kicks in anger. I think in fear mode, women's adrenaline kicks in much quicker. But I could be wrong. It may be essentially the same for men and women there. Student of History says... Oh, Billy says the clip is from News 19 WLTX. Doesn't necessarily matter to you two, brother. Student of History. Yeah, that's the fun thing about emergencies. With the flick of a switch, things go from normal day to lay a brick instantly. And you got to be able to flick that switch and be able to hold yourself. Yeah, and that's one of the things with men. It's evolutionary. Women were not evolved to be in crisis situations. Or to put themselves in crisis situations, I should say. Anyway, back to the stories here. The next story is Darrell Brooks. Because he's a piece of shit. And I don't care what anybody thinks of that. I will be doing a longer piece on him on Tuesday. No, not Tuesday. Sometime this week. I think it might be Monday. No, not Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday? No, not Wednesday. That's poetry. Okay, I'm just going to put that there for now. So, here's the problem. This guy stared down a judge, and she admitted to being scared. Whether you're scared or not, you never admit it to someone like this. This was a victory for Darrell Brooks. Whether it was, how to put it? Well, regardless of how I phrase it, this was a victory for Darrell Brooks because he successfully manipulated the system to get his way, at least in a small degree. Let's see. Oh, Student of History says you had to be able to hold yourself together. Yeah, basically. Callum Dayton, women are meant to protect their offspring, not take on and attack threats. Yes and no. I mean, there are lots of stories of women in earlier eras, Middle Ages, Viking times, things like that, who would take up arms if they needed to. That's the key phrase, though, if they needed to. And that's part of what I'm examining here. Do they need to? Student of History says, I say that as someone who was on my local fire department. We've had some nasty calls and you hold together until shit's over, then you decompress. Yes, exactly. Monkey says he watched that whole trial. He thinks the Lotus Eaters didn't do it justice on their segment. I'm not sure. Based Ape discovers he's a spanner. Student of History, you could be crying, could be not sleeping for a few nights, could be my old captain and going to grab a beer. Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak with a Toronto police officer once. And only earlier that day there had been a very bad crash on an 8-lane freeway in the city. And I asked him, how do you cope with things like that? He said to me, I drink a 6-pack of beer before I go on shift. Oof. But, yeah. Christopher Everard, judge should be the final boss of life. No one should intimidate a judge, and a judge should never be intimidated by anything. They have all the power. Why be afraid of what? Yeah, and if you look in that picture, this guy is just waiting to fuck this guy up. You can tell by the way he's looking at him. He has absolutely no care in the world for that guy. He wants the excuse. And I don't blame him. Not in the slightest. Callum Dayton says he'd love to know what Al Capone would think of the justice system now, considering what he did in Chicago and what I know of him from Count Dankula Mad Lads series. I think quite a lot of even the modern mafioso types think the justice system is a joke because it doesn't solve the problems. Not permanently. Callum Dayton says, Based Ape, you have become a wrencher. You are a trusted member of the channel and part of the gatekeepers. Yes, keep those gates. Anyway, back to this, this here. Frankly, it makes me scared. Judge Doro temporarily stops trial after Daryl Brooks pounds his fists and intensely stares her down. Now, clearly, she went into flight mode. Because the very first thing she did was say, okay, I'm out of here, I'm not dealing with this. That is the wrong move. And I am certain by this point she has been counseled that that was very much the wrong move. Now, should she have stared him down in return? Of course not. She should have ignored him as much as possible. Worst came to worst, she should have had him blindfolded or removed from the court. She had, if I recall correctly, she had already had him removed beforehand. When he slammed his fists on the table, she should have stopped proceedings right there and gone, if you don't get yourself under control, you're not staying in my courtroom. That would be my response to things like that. And if he kept up, okay, frig off. We can do this without you. Which obviously is not true, but moving along. Student History very vehemently says, do not back down when you are the god of that courtroom. Exactly. Had this been a male judge, the male judge would have done one of two things. Probably laughed at him, which is unprofessional and probably not the route he would have taken. Looked at him long enough to acknowledge that he was being stared at, and then proceeded to ignore him. In any case, here we go. Here's the full quote. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. That's not disrespectful, lady. That's intimidating. He is trying to intimidate you. He's not showing you disrespect. He's threatening you. He pounded his fist. Ooh, big monkey. Oh, that wasn't racial, by the way. That was talking about animal behavior. Let me just put my face back on screen. Big monkey move. Yeah, ape. Right? That's what I'm getting at, is that he was doing a threat display. Not that he's black, so he's a monkey. Please don't clip that. That probably was the worst thing I could have said this stream, but whatever. If YouTube comes after me over it, you guys are all on Twitter. Yeah. Let me see. Callum Dayton, I need to get this woman to listen to some Horus Heresy stuff with Puerto Rabo. You're talking Warhammer again, completely losing me, unfortunately. Dude was a fucking monster when he got angry at failure and disobedience. Well, I mean, regardless of what position of power you're in, if your underlings are not doing their job, yeah. Christopher Everett says, now every criminal will yell and stomp their feet until they are freed of charge. Stupid, stupid. Except that's not really what's going on here. You have to bear in mind this guy is somewhat mentally ill, at least, to be behaving like this. Especially when his own life is on the line. I don't see a lot of criminals doing that, because doing what Brooks did is still losing your dignity. Student of history is going on quite the tirade. Her word in that room is law. If she does something outside the law, it will be reviewed by an appellate court, but as far as those proceedings go, she might as well be God incarnate. Okay. That's all one word, by the way. That's my comment. Yeah, no. Oh, the clipping is going to happen. Yeah. Christopher Everard says he has to leave. Have fun. Always a pleasure to be with you. A bientôt, mon ami. So let's go back to this. Now, this has been talking about how women in position of... Callum says he sent me something on Discord. I'll have to have a look at it later. Maverick, hey Ard, this is Heels, your alt account. Oh, awesome. Hi, Heels, Promethean hails to you. So, what we're talking about is women being in positions of authority and why that may not be the greatest idea in some cases. Excuse me. So, obviously Brooks was doing this whole intimidation threat display thing. And that's one way that men will attempt to manipulate people around them. Women, in contrast, do other things. Like crying. This is a pretty good example of cry bullying. Twitter's top lawyer, and I do believe her name was Vijaya. Yes, Vijaya Gata. So she cried during a meeting about Elon Musk's buyout. Why do women cry when they're around people they aren't romantically involved with or personally having a fight with? Because they're attempting to manipulate you. Now, I do love this first sentence here, or this first paragraph, which is a bit of a run-on sentence, guys. Come on. Leftist tears were literally flowing at Twitter headquarters on Monday after Elon Musk's offer to buy the social media platform was accepted, as one high-ranking employee reportedly broke down and cried during a staff meeting about the purchase. So, she cried as she expressed concerns about how the company could change. So, is she attempting to display some sort of maternal emotional bond with this corporation that she works for? And she acknowledged significant uncertainties about what the company will look like under Musk. There aren't that many uncertainties. It's going to be pretty much business as usual, just that the political involvement is going to be stopped. That's one of the big things that Musk has said himself. Student of history says, sorry for reading in the chat. No, that's fine. But this is aggravating to watch. My justice system be so utterly subverted by a piece of shit puffing up his chest and a coward of a judge. See, here's where I have an issue with that comment. I don't think it's right to call a woman a coward. She's a woman. Coward is a term that should be applied strictly to men. You can disagree if you like, but the way I look at it is, if you're a man and you are weak and wimpy, fearful, then you're a coward. If you have the same reaction as a woman, or that same reaction in a woman, it's not cowardly. That's perfectly natural. Let's see. Student of history says, haha, cry harder. Try those sorry eyes with your golden parachutes. Yeah. Callum Dayton says something Warhammer something. So yeah, Gad, who's worked at Twitter since 2011, is the key executive charged with overseeing Twitter's trust and safety, legal and public policy functions. and was also known internally as Twitter's moral authority. Yeah, this was the woman who was responsible for having a sitting president removed from the platform. She's also the lead when it comes to blocking certain types of content based on who the creators were, not based on the content itself. And yeah, we all know that Musk has bought it. Okay, so now we're going back to court. Courtroom sexism. No crying motions filed by male opposing counsel. Now, for the men, and I don't know if there are any women in chat right now, but for the men in chat, what's your first instinct when you see this image? Your first instinct is to do something about it. You want to know why she's crying and how you can fix it. You see why I beat a one pops in. Something Warhammer, something God Emperor. Yes. I'm not going to repeat that on stream, Billy, but that's funny. Let's see. Student of history. If a woman has accepted the roles and responsibilities of the position and continues to act as if she doesn't have that position of authority, she is a coward and the term is applicable. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I don't necessarily disagree with you either. But here's where I have an issue with this particular... Good God, where is this? Oh, that's the entire article. Right there. Okay, so... the concern of this person writing is what happens when men file motions to preclude emotional displays of female attorneys. But you notice where that quote cuts off? Yeah. Now, this is a female attorney speaking. I've never cried in a trial, not once. I cannot tell you how much it demeans me. What, crying in a trial? Or these no crying motions? Because I am a woman, I have to act like it doesn't bother me. But I tell you that it does. The arrow lands every time. If you've never cried, and let me just come back and speak to her specifically. If you've never cried in a trial, why is this a problem for you? Callum Dayton says, is that it? Women cry. Feel sorry. Humbug. Based Ape. I only disagree because women should not be infantilized. Coward typically should be applied to men, but women should also be shamed for weak behavior. Yes, you can call them weak, but I think coward has a very, or should have a very strict usage. A lot of the old terms that we used as insults should be very strictly delineated between the genders, I think. The two genders. Oh, well, there I go off YouTube. Speaking of crybullying, Based will love this one. Diane Abbott supposedly receives half of all the online abuse sent to female politicians. Okay, I do believe someone in, Student of History just pointed out that if a woman accepts the roles and responsibilities of a position and continues to act as if she doesn't have that position, then, yeah, you want to definitely decry them. But, now, leaving aside the fact that there is no way she could possibly receive half of the online abuse, no matter how you did the statistic. And I have another proofreader peeve with this, but we'll come back to that. Female politicians are sent tens of thousands of abusive tweets daily. Really? Tens of thousands. Are they blocking? Are they complaining? Are they having YouTube ban people? Yeah. You have other means of rectifying this issue than going, I see that, Billy, and I'll get to it in a second. But you have many other means of rectifying this other than cry bullying to the media. Billy has called her Diane Epipapa. English. Based Ape says, learn how to wear shoes then. I don't quite understand that one. Let's see. Callum Dayton badly misspells suffragette. Handed out white feathers to men during World War I who wouldn't sign up for the draft. Yes. And that is one of the first instances of female terrorism, in my opinion. It's emotional terrorism. Thing lead to a drop in shell quality and a lot of unexploded ordnance. I'm not quite sure what that one's about. Student of history, coward should be strictly applied. However, I say it should be heavily weighted. Not only weighted on one station, or in other words, politicians should not complain like whiny bitches. You put yourself in public life. Yeah. Yes, Billy, she is all of those things. Abbott was caught wearing 2 left shoes. Oh, seriously? Okay. Yes, I am willing to let you derail me. Oh, dear gods. And they're not even... Well, they wouldn't be matched shoes if they were lefties. That is terrible. And she's going to the... Oh. No, no, no. She went to vote like that. Oh. Okay, something else I want to say. And this is for the women. Women, if you wear shoes that aren't comfortable, stop. Because things like this will happen. You will put on a second left shoe in a hurry and not realize it because you're used to your shoes being uncomfortable. Don't do that. Let's see. Sent it to you on Discord. Thick mints. 2 left shoes. Oof, that is terrible. Yeah. Okay. Wow, I'm getting close to my hour mark, so I'm going to run through this a little bit faster. Yeah, this is absolute bullshit. This is like the unreported rapes, right? If they're unreported, how do you know about them? This one really bothered me. This is a female soldier who forged deployment orders to exploit her girlfriend for clickbait clout. And of course, she cried, right? But why the girlfriend cried is very obvious. Let's see here. Yeah, here's the girlfriend's response. We got to put our life on hold for a year. So of course you're not going to take that well. And this is a prank. Now, here's where the big problem for the military was. She released the names of individuals who are part of the unit that she serves with. Yeah, including her commanding officer. And cheers to have forged his signature. Oof. Yeah, I do believe she is facing some sort of charge. Yeah, but anyway. Now, that's not really that big a deal. Callan Dayton explaining the unexploded ordnance thing. Because of the women handing out white feathers, the men who were working in the munitions factories were shamed and went off to fight. So the quality of the work went down. I see. Yeah. A lot of HEH shells didn't explode when fired. Oof. Student of history, InfoSec and OPSEC boys aren't going to like that one. Yeah. Callan says sorry for the spam. No worries. I'll let you know if you're out of line. But this is another, and this isn't meant to cast blame on anybody. I want to make this very clear. Examining this story is not intended to cast blame on anybody. This is intended to protect people and to look at the best way forward, or potentially the best way forward. Again, I will say it all day. I am not making any statements of firm fact. I'm not saying what should be done. I'm looking at ways that we could do things to make things better for everybody. That said, betrayed by her own corporal, foul-mouthed Army instructor faces court-martial after his video of female recruit being reduced to tears is viewed 250,000 times. Okay. I follow angry cops on YouTube, and I really enjoy his stuff. He's an ex-drill instructor. I've seen a lot of footage of drill instructors. They can't do half... if you guys have ever seen Full Metal Jacket, I actually haven't. I've seen loads and loads of clips, so I have a vague idea. Actually, that's not true. I think I did see Full Metal Jacket when I was like 16. But I wasn't really paying attention to it because it was at a party and, well, there were girls. But As I recall, R. Lee Ermey, the guy who plays Gunnery Sergeant, oh, I can't remember his character's name. Anyway, the drill sergeant. He basically chokes a guy out. D'Onofrio. Well, essentially he gets D'Onofrio to choke himself, but I'm sure you remember that scene. But the things that drill instructors used to be able to do are pretty friggin' brutal. Using words for men, and this is where a lot of the drill instructors have an issue. Using just words on men is not going to be as effective as if you can actually give them a kick in the ass and get them moving. Gunny, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're not allowed to strike you anymore. All they can do is yell and be somewhat demeaning. Yeah, and that's part of where the problem with this story comes in. Women use those weapons against each other. Men use physical. We get physical. We use our physicality, not our... there's no destroying the reputation of a man. Not really. You can say things about him, but then he'll turn around and he'll say the truth if you're telling lies. Callum Dayton points out that the Army going nice on its recruits isn't good for the Army. Absolutely true. Don't piss off the sergeants. Yeah, no doubt. Bad Lads Army. I'm going to write that down because I suspect that will be extremely entertaining. Okay. But just to go back to this story, as I was pointing out, women tend to use verbal abuse and emotional degradation as their weapons. So when a woman is in a position of training under a drill sergeant, especially where the drill sergeant is not allowed to be physical, to grab somebody and throw them where they're supposed to be going, or push them in the right direction, what have you, get them physically motivated, then it's unfair. Now, I mean, this young woman, I feel bad for her. And you can see, like, there we go. You can see here, like, this quote is glorious. Are you a fucking killer or are you a mouse? That's exactly what you'd ask a man. And if you ask that question of a man, you're going to spur his defiance motivation. That fuck you that comes in the back of your head. That's exactly what that drill instructor wants from this woman. She doesn't have it. Women don't have that. Not the same as men, certainly. And of course, the Lord, who I assume is some sort of supervisor over the Army, he said he hopes the identity of the corporal is discovered very quickly and he is removed from the Army at the earliest possible moment. No. Wrong choice. You remove this person from the Army. This person is not suited to be in combat. Not at all. This kind of behavior is totally unacceptable. Motherfucker, you've never been in a fucking crisis, have you? You want the hardest son of a bitch in the room at your back. Every single time, preferably in front of you. But you see my point. Recruits are expected to show aggression. Yeah, they're expected to show aggression. Period. Right there. Show aggression. If you watch this video, yeah, she is fucking weak. She's got a piercing in her tongue. Good God. Which I'm sure is not regs for training. Yeah, this part where it was filmed and put online, it may have been filmed because the sergeant wanted to make the case to his fellow sergeants or to his superiors why this sort of thing shouldn't be happening, why women shouldn't be in the training. But yeah, it's unclear who edited the instructor's footage and posted it online. So it probably wasn't the instructor. Right? Let's make that very clear. This instructor was not looking to demean her on a wide scale. He was looking, he probably recorded it for the simple fact that he wanted to document what was going on. And, I mean, yeah, I'm theorizing, but I honestly think... Oh, that's getting cold. But I honestly think he wanted to bring attention to some of the issues. Now, I'll put myself as this person for a minute. The reason I would have been filming would be to take it to my superior and go, look, we need to get women out of training. We cannot make them effective soldiers. By and large, they cannot be effective soldiers. The first way you weed out weak people is physically. So the physical training, if they can't do the physical, then they don't belong. They're simply physically incapable. Then you had to find out if they're emotionally incapable. That's why you have things like the BUDS program, the SEAL training, that puts you in the harshest environments they possibly can. They know physically you can handle it. They don't know if you can handle it mentally. That's what's going on here. He's testing her mental ability to withstand punishment. Student history says Billy Blogs, yes, Gunny. Callum, I've seen a bit of drill instructor stuff. Gunnery sergeant is a Marine rank between staff sergeant, sergeant major, sort of. Yeah, I do believe it was Marines in Full Metal Jacket. Student history, I don't. She's in the military. She accepted position of authority or power, and therefore it is what it is. That's the problem, though. She wasn't prepared for what she would have to deal with, obviously. The Army doesn't have time for wimps. Bad lads, all the bad eggs were drilled out within the first 3 weeks. All that were left were the ones who wanted to get through the course. Exactly. Oh, excuse me. That is the British Army getting embarrassed this time, I think. Yes and no, Billy. In some ways, this is kind of an indictment of the entire Western military. Because we're allowing people who are too weak to cut it to be on the front line. That's going to get other soldiers killed. Right. I'm past the point where I think I'm past the point where I could sign up and serve. And even if I could, I'm fairly sure my medical condition would keep me from doing that. I have thyroid disease. I have to take a pill every day. If I'm out in the field for 3 weeks, I'm fucked. Let's see. Callum Dayton, if that female couldn't handle training, what the hell is she going to do when the lead starts flying and the shell start... Exactly. And yeah, you don't want to drag dead weight. You need soldiers to pull their weight and at least some of the people beside them. Student history, no superior shitting on their subordinates purely to drag them. Yes, it's to drag them, but then it's also to push them. Yeah, but this is part of the problem. Females, or women, don't generally have the same fuck you response to being abused. The fight or flight differentiation I made earlier. Student of history says same thing happened in fire school. They'd smoke your shit for doing something wrong, but they'd tell you how to fix it and tell you improve or leave. And Billy Blogs points out women are a burden on the battlefield. Now, I will come slightly to women's defense here. There are some women who will be capable. They're outliers, but there will be some capable women, which is why the physical requirements never should have been changed. Those physical requirements, if anything, should have been made harder for a woman to complete. And then they should have been smoked at least as much as the guys. I have a suspicion that in that clip, if you were to watch it and show it to a group of drill sergeants or drill instructors, whatever the term they're using here for their rank, I suspect quite a few of them would say something along, especially the older guys would say, he's taking it awfully easy on her. Anyway, a lot of this comes down to how people interact. Men and women, the genders, interact with each other. And this is one of the things I wanted to play real quick. Now, this is going to be about 10 seconds of this video. Because much as I'd like to play the whole clip, I don't know if Joe Rogan's team would strike me or not, and I really don't want them to. So I'm going to play about 2 or 3 seconds, maybe 10, and just get the message I'm looking for so I can pass it along.
How do we regulate? What are the norms around sexual behavior in the workplace?
There. Okay. this is one of the things, and I'm just going to close this so I don't start playing it again. Oh, actually, I will talk about this before I finish. And this, I'm sure you guys remember this from a few years ago. This is actually newer than the one I was thinking of. But there are complaints about how air conditioning is sexist. Men have a uniform for business. It's a 3-piece, or at least a 2-piece suit. That means a jacket and pants. That's a fairly heavy outfit compared to, well, let's just do this. No, not office formal, office casual. And I'm just going to pull up some images here. So, this is office casual for a woman. This is office casual for a man. That's not office casual. You don't show up in jeans. That's not an office job. You also don't do this. You don't show up with your shirt untucked. That is not that is too casual. This is office casual. This guy is a little past office casual, but the colors make it casual. But for a woman, this is office casual. Very thin pants, no socks, very high shoes. Now, what's the purpose of high heels, guys? What does that do to a woman's physiognomy? Yeah. This is not office casual. This is a casual office. This is office casual on the high end for a woman. I think she should have something covering her throat. That's me. But let's take a closer look at this real quick. Ooh, wrong way. Let me just bring her up a little closer. She's wearing lipstick. And probably some form of face makeup. And, of course, the question you're going to ask is, well, what's the problem with that, Ardent? Well, the problem with that is that signals sexual preparedness. Why are you doing that at work? Right? That's one of the things that Jordan Peterson went on about in that clip as well. But one of the things I did want to point out, talking about air conditioning, women complain about being cold in general, far more than men. In any case, the study states that overcooling is a wasteful and unsustainable energy expense that may adversely impact the ability of women to focus on their work. Okay, well, if you want the women to be more comfortable, let the men be more comfortable. Tell the men, hey, you don't have to wear a suit. You can come in shorts and a t-shirt or a light shirt. Right? But here's something that's really funny. It did not offer precise reasons for overcooling, but suggested lower than necessary temperatures favor the thermal preferences of men. Yeah, the thermal preference of, I don't want to sweat while I work in an office. The study also dismissed biology and fashion as reasons why women might feel colder than men, noting that these explanations inadvertently position women as the source of the problem rather than the thermal environments of offices. So, why can't the women wear more clothes? Cover up a little more. Wear something warmer. Yeah, you're allowed to. They do make these things called long skirts, which actually, depending on the woman, look quite fetching on them. But again, you shouldn't be signaling sexual interest or willingness to be interested in to your coworkers. There's a lot of anti-fraternization clauses in office work. I've done office work. I've done office work where I've had great relationships with my coworkers, male and female. And it's not uncommon for us to hug when we're talking. I had one older lady who actually hugged me quite thoroughly one day. We were talking about something and she said she was sad and I offered her a hug. Perfectly innocent. She was significantly older than me. No sexual interest I would expect from either one of us. But she hugged me and she called me comfy, which, it was just a moment where we both laughed. But we both got a talking to from our supervisor later. Inappropriate behavior. And we both kind of laughed at it and said, okay, it won't happen again. But we shouldn't have had to do that. Silly, but then if it had been a younger man and a younger woman, could have been a problem. Let's see here. Yes, Billy, it is, in fact, all about those two parts. Uh, yes. It also shifts the gait, the way that someone walks. Let's see. Callum Dayton says, and yeah, I absolutely agree. Women who can serve on the battlefield are the exception. Exceptions are key in that they break the rule. Yeah. Uh, Callum Dayton says, dude on the left is clearly from Twitter. How casual is jeans, hoodie, and a t-shirt? Too casual for office work, if there's an office dress code. Yeah, it signals arousal too. Yeah, the rouge will signal arousal. Yeah, lipstick too, I think. Callum Dayton says, so too cold makes it hard to work. Well, I'm cold here because I'm sitting in a basement and I haven't got any heat on. It's getting on to winter, but I'm a poor and I want to save money as long as I can. I have slippers under my feet, so yeah. And I'm wearing wool socks. I'm cold comfortable. Billy Plog says, oh, for fuck's sakes, not the bloody thermostat BS again. Yeah, well, this one was kind of tangentially connected to it. And Billy asks about the fraternization problem with women in the military. Yeah, that too is another good reason not to have women in the military. So that's all the articles and stuff I had. So there was another, it wasn't this video that, or the one that I was referencing from the military. There was an older one where a female soldier actually started crying and kind of froze up on an obstacle course. While I felt very bad for that woman, I was also somewhat angry about it. Not because the instructor was being abusive. That's his job. They're there to make you tougher. They're the anvil and hammer. You're the fucking sword. Yeah. Or the recruit is the sword. Bash, bash, bash. Sharp. But all of this stuff taken in total, the judge that was completely intimidated by Brooks, the officer or the officers who've made the mistake of grabbing a taser, or grabbing a pistol instead of a taser. I'm sure some of you remember the footage from Britain 2 or 3, maybe more years ago now, of 2 female police officers being manhandled by a single black teenage boy. You've seen over and over female police officers by this time just being absolutely rolled by males who in some cases are much smaller than them. A student of history says, but it's so cold. Jesus, can't stand the women whining shits, but honestly, grab a jacket, put on pants. Yeah, exactly my point. If it's hot outside and the women show up in light summer clothing to an office where you have a mixed gender environment, then it's unfair to the men to expect them to wear a heavy jacket. It's only fair. By the same token, if it's cold outside and the men show up in that same outfit and they're complaining that they're cold and want the heat turned up, but the women are all bundled up, which never happens, then it would be unfair that way. And like Jordan Peterson pointed out about how do we regulate sexual behavior in the workplace, one of the things he talks about is clothing, high heels, low-cut shirts. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone into a business and the receptionist sitting behind the desk, who is generally lower than you, obviously because she's sitting down, is wearing something low-cut enough that I can look down at. And I do. Every single time. Titties. But that's not professional attire. But apparently we're not allowed to tell women that. Why? We're not allowed to expect women to adhere to the same standards as everybody else. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, I'm way over time too. But, and like I said, I was not making any sort of assertions here. This was all about discussing the issue. So, should... remember to check Discord. I will, in fact. Oh, sorry about that. Let me write that down. Callum, Discord. Okay, Billy, female police officers at the Notting Hill Festival got sexually assaulted and daggered. Ugh. Yeah. And see, this is also something else. What would have happened to any man who had gotten involved and hauled those guys away from them? What would have happened to those guys? They would have been charged, and probably charged with hate crimes, because they were black teenagers. Or black boys. Black guys. Student of History 2s can relate and ain't complaining, but I don't run an office or work in one. Neither do I. And I work for myself. Fortunately, I'm doing this, and I've got the woodworking. And yes, I do understand that when you're running a business, and I would probably be prone to this or potentially vulnerable to this as well. If I was running a business and I was looking to hire a receptionist, I would try to find an attractive female to do the job. After I found someone competent. I don't care how good looking you are. You could be Cindy friggin' Crawford. Sorry, early 80s vintage Cindy Crawford. You can walk in and tell me you don't know anything about doing reception work. And then I could have the ugliest guy on the planet, or me, walk in and go, yeah, I've got this degree, this diploma, this much experience, blah, blah, blah. I'm giving the job to him. Not because I'm sexist. Because he's qualified. Now, if I had a 10 and an 8 come into work, I'd actually be more likely to pick the 8. Because I don't want my customers coming in and ogling my fucking employees. Student of History says early 80s. Yep, lost me there. Well, now you know how it feels when you start talking about Warhammer. Or when you guys start talking about Warhammer. I don't know for sure if it's you specifically. But, yeah, I definitely have a type. Oddly enough, it's not Cindy Crawford that I was trying to give a universal reference, actually. If you want... Here's a better one that actually does reflect my type. Christina Hendricks. That's my type. Pale and redheaded. Curves. Oh, okay. But the issue that I'm seeing is that when we give women a position of authority and they're not capable of fulfilling those responsibilities, maybe we should start rethinking whether or not they should be in those roles. As Violence is Life pointed out on the earlier, in the comments on the earlier lead-up video to this, in the home, they absolutely should. And yeah, if ideally, and this is where my TradCon kind of leanings are going to be obviously visible, ideally, the husband goes out, makes the money, comes home, and hands the paycheck to the wife, who can be trusted to responsibly deal with that money and take care of the kids and take care of the home. And contrary to what the feminists think, a homemaker is an extremely, extremely valuable occupation for a woman to be engaged in. Oh, but it doesn't pay. Yeah, it does. Who gets woken up to check out noises in the night? Who's expected to bring the money in to keep everything going? It's not the woman. Let's see. Student of History. I can do a lot of talking about Warhammer, but I'm not one of the Helleners. That's Tiabu. No, wait. Somebody corrected me about that. It isn't supposed to be Tiabu. What was the term? I forget now anyway. I'm going to keep calling them Tiabus, because it's mostly the Brits. Yeah, Billy Blocks feels extremely corrected about my type. Yeah. But this judge in Wisconsin, Callum is the Warhammer person. Yeah, I think you've both made Warhammer comments before, both you and Student. And I think even Primed has made comments about Warhammer in the past. But before I stretch this out too much longer, when it comes to Not about the money when it comes to a housewife. Absolutely not, yeah. When it comes to positions of authority, yes, and I do agree with Caucasian Sasquatch's assessment. Women can be just as competent as men. Absolutely. In a crisis situation, no. So with this judge who was faced with a guy who went, then yeah, maybe that's not the position that a woman should be in. How much did I change my camera angle there? Saw the camera jump significantly. But Teaboo is nerds for normally World War II British stuff in the same way the weeaboos and the commies do. But yeah, the judge, the two female police officers we discussed, and maybe that male should think about a different position. I forget exactly who it was talking about firefighting. I believe it was student. Student was talking about being in the fire department. Yeah, those physical requirements exist for a reason. And when you're in a life-saving occupation, like fire, like military, like the police, if you lower those standards, people die. Cause, consequence. Yeah, student of history says me, yeah. Billy says he has no idea what student's talking about. But as far as final thoughts go, I think it's probably a good idea to examine whether or not men and women should occupy the same occupations, whether they should be employed in the same occupations. Especially where the biological gender differences play a role. In the case of a judge, maybe not so much. In the case of a police officer, probably. In the case of the military, absolutely. In that case, yes. I am very much tradcon. I believe women do not belong in combat. Ever. And they should be kept out of any possibility of combat. No, Spaz, I don't necessarily... Prime Knight says, if women have no power, who sleeps on the couch? Good point. Spaz says women shouldn't be in leadership positions, period. I vehemently disagree with that. Leadership is not the same as combat. Who's kicked out of their own house still has to pay for it, woman and the kids. Yeah. And that's reflective of traditional values. The problem is, if you want truly equal... if women truly wanted equality, they themselves would be... Excuse me, spat on myself. Oh, Spaz is taking the biblical perspective. And I understand that. I don't necessarily share it. Who did the cooking in Joseph of Nazareth's house? Was it the carpenter? Or was it the mother? When it came to leadership, I think Mary probably did have a little bit more to do with it than the Bible makes clear. And the Bible is a spotty account at best, to be fair. It's not like it's an actual biography. Yeah, nourishment and homemaking is fine, but that is a leadership position. It's just not viewed that way by a lot of people, because a lot of people want to denigrate the homemaker as some kind of servant, especially the feminists. Just to go back to Billy's point. You don't think teaching kids is a leadership position? I think you better re-examine that view, Spaz. Okay, let me put it to you this way, Spaz. Is a drill instructor a leadership position? But just to go back to Billy's... Teaching is absolutely a leadership position, Spaz. Absolutely. Would it be fair to say Joseph was cucked by God? I'd just like to say that if you can create a woman out of some dude's rib, why you gotta fuck another guy's wife? Anyway. Yeah. Yeah, but a drill instructor is a teacher. In a classroom, the teacher is the leader. Right? But to go back to Billy's point about divorce or separation, yeah, if the feminists really were dedicated to the idea of equality, they themselves would have been fighting the idea of maternity rights, custody rights, child support, all that sort of thing. Spaz says he thinks I'm conflating the shite out of this topic. You're free to think that. You're absolutely free to think that. We can disagree. We're not leftists here. Right? I'm way past where I'd normally end my stream. Otherwise, I'd be willing to stick around and have a chat about this. Maybe next Sunday, bring it up earlier on if you come on. Normally, I start about an hour and a half earlier. I didn't say nourishment equaled leadership. I was talking about teaching. But in any case, I'm going to end it here. But Spaz, I absolutely do invite you to come back next week and bring up the topic, and we'll cover it a little bit more early on. Let's see. Callum Dayton, you are meant to hate the drill instructor. They are meant to break you down, build you back up again. I don't think it's necessarily about hatred. I think it's more about where they're basically trying to teach you how to point your aggression at an appropriate target. Yeah, as I said, Spaz, you're more than welcome to come back next week. Right? We'll talk about it then. I'm getting out of here right away. Half an hour over time anyway. And I'm hungry, and I'm going to get hangry soon. In any case, folks, I hope this was... Callum says he's being a bit liberal with the word hate. Yeah, fair enough, right? That's perfectly acceptable. Understandable. I tend to be a little as precise as possible with my language because I'm doing this. But in any case, I think we've come to a good point to stop. Hopefully I've given you guys some stuff to think about. Hopefully I've not pissed off too many people. And yeah, so we'll see how things go over the next while. But yeah, no conclusions have been reached other than one that I already have, which is that women don't belong in combat. And potentially not in a law enforcement position either. Anywhere where they'll be faced with a crisis situation. In any case, folks, I hope you're having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days. And rise again.